Hey, everybody, good evening. We are recording. We're meeting with Lisa Sette, who is in Arizona, which may or may not be a wasteland of culture, or without culture. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Paul. Hello, everybody.
Um, where were you raised?
Outside of New Haven, Connecticut.
Okay. Where were you born?
In New Haven, Connecticut.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Hamden High School.
Is that in Connecticut?
It's a suburb of New Haven. So a lot of people that went to Yale or taught at Yale lived in places like Hamden.
Was that what your parents did?
No.
I got all these false directions here. When you were in high school, did you think you were going to be an artist?
Yes. I knew since junior high school.
Did you have a revelatory moment?
No, I think I was just encouraged. And, I was very particular about things in terms of what I liked. Maybe I was just a fussy kid. I don't know. But I knew in junior high school. Although I'm not an artist now, and I haven't been for over 30 years.
When you went to college, is art something you focused on?
Yes, it was art history, and it was the history of photography, and it was studio art. It was studio photography.
Where was this?
That half of it was in Hartford, Connecticut, at the University of Hartford, and then the second half of it was at Arizona State University. There was a British photo historian named Bill Jay, and he had written a book titled Negative Positive or Positive Negative, I don't remember which, and it was pretty much the history of photography, but sort of real time and real anecdotes and people that he knew. And he was teaching at Arizona State University, so I packed everything up from Connecticut and came to Arizona.
That was a life-changing moment.
Oh, I got to get away from my crazy Italian relatives. Yes, it was life-changing.
Yeah, Italian relatives in Arizona get cleansed. And you stayed in Arizona.
Yes. I started a business.
Wait. But what did you major in?
I majored in studio photography.
And what did you do with all that knowledge when you graduated?
I had to sort of close it all up. I mean, I didn't think that I was good enough to be an artist, so I didn't pursue that route. And
what did you do upon graduation?
Upon graduation, before I graduated, I actually had a show with all of my fellow students in a house that we were renting. It was 7 roommates. No one had any money for furniture, so we had a huge house with a big downstairs and no furniture. And I decided to have an exhibition of my work and my fellow students' work. And so that was probably the start of it. And then after I graduated, I started with my ex-husband a print publishing company for fine art printing. And then out of that came the gallery. And in between, I had a couple of kids. And so the gallery actually is, I think, going to be 30 years old in a couple months. So that was some years ago.
Wow, that's really cool on one hand. And on the other hand, I always find it how fascinating how some serendipitous little kind of decision can be so significant in, shaping a life course, like somebody saying over coffee or walking from a class, we need to have a show somewhere. And Lisa's going, hey, wait, I know, I can do it.
Well, I mean, I think for most artists and for myself, everything sort of unfolds. I don't think that I went into studying art history or studying photography because I thought I had a path or I was following a certain path. I think things sort of unfold, and if they feel right, you go with them, and then you build upon that. But it all happens very organically.
Maybe. Let's see. All right. So you did this show. Then you decided to go to work for somebody, or you decided to open your own gallery, or the whole thing got tabled. What happened?
I've been self-employed my entire adult life, so I decided to go to work for myself right after graduating.
Awesome.
I'd never worked for another gallery. I mean, the only other skill I have is a waitress, and I don't think anybody's going to hire me for that any longer. But So yes, I went straight from graduating college into owning my own business and trying to make it work without having the experience of having worked for anyone else. So it was a slow growth.
That's exactly the same thing I did. And you should have learned from me or something. Only because I'm so much older. So how did it go? Immediately you were successful. It was all wonderful. You've been writing on your own laurels, your own coattails ever since.
What are you smoking?
The best available.
Oh my gosh, no. And
no. Well, how has it been? What is it like?
It's, every day it's a struggle, but every day you get up and you enjoy what you do, and oh, by the way, you don't know how to do anything else. And so you find a way to make it really enjoyable, and yeah, but no. Success is, I mean, I don't even know how you define it, but every day is a challenge in the art business.
Does your success as a gallery, is it determined, is your ability to stay open determined by the gallery sales and activity?
Solely.
So I mean, this is the 5th year of doing these webinars. So I've spoken to a lot of art dealers / gallerists. And let me define the difference for you guys, because I think it's interesting. I think an art dealer has come to be defined as someone who is interested in making the transaction, consummating a sale, closing a deal. And I think that a gallerist has been self-defined by people who've wanted to separate themselves from having just been the one big group of called art dealers. A gallerist is someone who prioritizes the artist's career, and maybe not making a sale because I've heard of a dealer that we did a webinar with from Brazil who preferred not to sell to collectors in Asia because Asian collectors do not lend work for exhibitions. Mm-hmm. So therefore, let's not sell to them as much because we want the work to be seen more. So that's someone who doesn't make a priority of solely the sale, but the artist's career and the bigger picture, with the artist in a higher place in the list.
Well, how I would sort of respond to that anecdote, and I think I do understand the difference. We made a decision about a year ago to leave Scottsdale and move to Phoenix, and I bought a little building in Midtown Phoenix, and there are no other galleries around us. There are 2 museums. And my other choice would have been to be a private dealer and do art fairs. But I still feel that there is a need and there's an importance in having a space for artists to show their work. And so, the dilemma was, sort of choosing between those two, and I chose to continue to have a space, especially if an artist has a performative aspect to their work. So I don't think I'm a dealer. If I were a dealer, I would have chosen to just do private dealing, out of my garage or home or whatever, and I would have done, 5 or 6 art fairs a year. So I think that I am still a gallerist, I guess is my point.
No, I think you definitely are. But you've jumped way ahead in the conversation to the changing role of art galleries in the...
Oh, sorry.
Well, I don't know, just the nature, that's you. Prescient. So, is this gallery smaller than your previous gallery? How much of a gallery do you have to have? What is it, all right, so you got to redefine yourself as a gallery space. You could have gone bigger or smaller than 3,000 feet, bigger or smaller than 10,000 square feet. What did you do?
Well, we were in 2,200 square feet, and we have a building now with 3,500 square feet. So we went bigger, but the gallery isn't necessarily that much bigger because, as you all know, you need storage. So, when we were sort of redesigning the space, we need storage. So the gallery space is still fairly intimate, which I think is important too. I didn't want a giant cavernous space.
One of the big transitions between galleries having a physical brick and mortar space and galleries not having a space is having a gathering place for artists. and where a dialogue can happen. Does that happen in Phoenix?
It does. We had a dinner party under our parking structure about a month ago for all of the artists that live in Arizona that were able to make it. No clients, just staff and artists. And there were artists who we've shown for 15 or 20 years that had never met one another. So yes, that does happen.
All right. So then the corollary or the follow-up question is, given that you choose to have a physical space and given that it has to do with some of it has to do with a dialogue for artists, do you make a priority of local artists?
Yes, I would say yes. I don't know what the ratio is of local artists to national to international because, well, you can't see it, but I have clocks here from all over the world because we show artists from Argentina, India, France, New Zealand, et cetera, et cetera. But we have a pretty good stable of Arizona-based artists too.
How many artists do you work with?
Oh my gosh, I don't know the total number, but I'm going to guess.
You don't have to know. Guess.
20, 25, maybe?
I think that seems like a fairly normal number. Is that about the number you'd like to be working with?
Yes.
How many of those people have you added in the past 12 months?
Maybe 2.
How many people are no longer on the roster that were there a year ago? Maybe 2?
Maybe 1 or 2, yeah.
Is that normal? In and out for a year is like 2%? 10%, 2 artists a year?
Some artists we've worked with the whole 30 years. So there's not a big, attrition rate, but yeah, some, actually a few artists have died. So there's sort of a natural,
Right. Some of these are the key questions that I think differentiate galleries from one another. One of which you've already answered. Does the gallery need to make money to exist?
Yes, I do not have a sugar daddy. Yes.
and is that an applicant? No. And what kind of gallery would an artist like to show with? Would you like to be in a gallery where you're really loved, or would you like to be in a gallery where that was the question, the gallery initially that I strayed from, the gallerist, the dealer, must sell your art. Do you have any star artists that keep the gallery open to an extent? You can or cannot name them if you can identify them.
There are probably 4 or 5 artists that sell more than many of the other artists.
Without wanting to name names, I can think of some galleries having an artist like Dale Chihuly or Deborah Butterfield, where you can pretty much count on decent sales that enable the gallery to show things that they love. Does that happen? Are there artists that you can show because some other artist is doing well enough to enable that?
Yeah, I think some of the more established artists help carry the younger artists, but I think that's how it should be.
Okay.
Because the more established artists they're getting paid, and so that enables us to do things with the younger artists who hopefully will. It's a cycle, and you want that cycle to continue.
Are you looking for a balance in terms of the 25 artists? Do you want so many of them to be established and so many of them to be emerging and so many of them to be mid-career and so many to be male and so many to be photography and so many to be female? And is there some loose concept like we don't have any men artists?
I never really understood that whole food pyramid thing, so I don't look at things like that in terms of, do I want this many male and this many women and this many local, and I don't. And so if you ask me sort of percentages of who's local, who's not, who's male, who's female, I probably couldn't answer because I don't think in terms of those kind of balances. Maybe there's some sort of natural balance that occurs, but it's not thought about in advance. It's not premeditated.
You make me think of a question that's, just like, out of left field, but how many of your artists have master's degrees?
I would say probably quite a few, and some have no college education whatsoever. Some are self-taught.
Do you know, is having a master's degree significant for you?
No. No.
A lot of artists in this course historically wrestle with, should I get a master's, should I not? And I tend to lean in the not category pretty strongly. Yeah. And I think many art galleries don't know whether their artists do or not, which I think is indicative of they don't think it's all that important.
I agree. For employees, it's a little bit of a different answer.
Yes.
I do like a master's degree.
Yeah.
For most employees, and they have to have an art history degree.
How many employees do you have?
I think about 5. 1, 2, 3 or 4 are full-time, and then 1 or 2 are part-time.
What kind of a commitment do you expect when they sign on with you?
Oh my God, I'm Italian. They have to sign all sorts of things.
But I guess another point I make is always be nice to the people who work in the galleries, because an awful lot of them have a whole lot more clout than you think.
Yeah.
And many of them are going to grow up to be big people galleries all by themselves.
Yeah. Well, plus we should just be nice to people anyway. But yes.
Oh yeah, that's true too. But yeah, oh my God, I've been slapped. No, I think you're right though. I think one should be. All right. Do you feel like your gallery has a focus?
I'm sure that it does. I'm probably too close to it to know what that thread is, because it varies in medium and it varies in type of art, and so I don't think I could articulate what the focus is. Someone once said that it was quiet yet the work in the gallery was quiet yet compelling, and so that that might sum up some of it.
Okay. How do you find new artists?
A lot of it is word of mouth. I mean, other artists, I ask other artists a lot. People that whose work that we show and who I respect as an artist and a human being. For example, Enrique Chagoya, who teaches at Stanford. I asked him, many, many years ago, do you have any outstanding students or anyone that you have come across that you think I should look at? And he told me about a Vietnamese artist named Binh Don, who we took on pretty quickly after Enrique suggested him. So I'm looking in places that, through people that I trust. I trust their aesthetic and their judgment too about how that person might be to work with, because it's a relationship, and I don't want to work with people who are difficult.
Yeah, exactly. So that I have a number of things to ask, but it isn't solely the quality of the artwork that makes you want to have a relationship with an individual. It's also about the personality of the individual and anticipating a long-term relationship.
Well, first and foremost, it's about the work. I mean, the work has to, it has to be different enough.
Yeah, totally.
That it interests me. But I do a little bit of reconnaissance, a little bit of research on the person, before making that commitment. And, whether it's other dealers or other artists or collectors. And, if there's a big D on that chart, I'm out.
A big what?
A big D for difficult.
A big D. Okay, yeah, on the chart. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's enough artists that you don't have to deal with those who are difficult. And sometimes I'm assuming that there's a sense of equality in how you feel about the art. And there's an artist who you prefer as a human being, and that person gets moved up in line a little bit.
Gosh, I've never thought about it that way. But, you know when you don't want to answer the phone, if it's a certain artist on the line and you don't want to answer the phone, that's indicative.
It's a clue.
It's a clue. And so when my artists call, I pick up the phone.
How?
I like them all.
What? That's important. How often do you want to be in touch with your artists? How often do you communicate with them? Is it monthly?
Well, it depends. I mean, if they've got an upcoming show, then it's fairly frequently. Although there's some artists that we've worked with for so long that I don't feel like I need to check in as much because, they sort of know, they know what they're doing, and they know, well, now it's changed a little bit because the space has changed. That's a good question. Yeah, once every couple months.
Who initiates the calls? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It's like an extended family.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully they'll pick up the phone when I call.
Yeah, right. How promptly should an artist be paid? I think that's related. It's not.
Well, I'm a super freak about this, and you can ask any of my artists and any of my employees. When the check comes in, it's usually within 2 days of us getting paid. I don't do the 30-day thing. I just don't do the 30-day thing. Partly because I need to know where we're at. I need to know what's my money to make the business run. And the only way I can do that, since I don't have a degree in accounting and numbers are not my strong point, is I have to get it out of the account. I have to pay the artists. So we pay super fast, lightning fast.
Beautiful. And, just for doing that, you have a good reputation.
Oh, well, thank you.
There are many other things, but so many galleries, I think, don't do that. And
I'm not sophisticated enough with numbers to not pay them and get in trouble. So, yeah.
How many of your artists, all right, you got 25 artists. How many of them are out of the United States?
Oh, at least half, probably, or close to half.
How many of your sales are in Arizona?
I would say maybe about 35%, give or take.
How do the rest happen?
Art fairs, internet, probably.
So the website's a big deal.
Yeah, the website is a big deal, especially for the more established artists. For the younger artists, it doesn't function probably as great, but yeah. It's the 21st century in it.
Well, conversely...
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You go. I'm shifting gears.
I think, if I flipped it and I were a collector, I don't know that I would, unless I knew the artist's work really well, and that only works for more established artists, I don't think I could buy from the internet. I think I'd have to experience it in person, see it in person.
That's what we say, but we sell it to people we're happy to sell it to people who feel differently.
Right.
All right, so now you hear about artists from other artists or other people whose aesthetics you respect.
Yes.
Do you then go look at that artist's website?
Yes.
So that an artist should have a good and or seductive website.
A fairly decent one, yes.
What does that mean to you?
In terms of fairly decent?
Yeah, what does it look like?
Just something where I can really see what the images are, what the work is like. I don't care about all the mumbo jumbo. I don't need an artist statement, all that stuff. I just want to look at the work, because you look at it and you either get a feeling or you don't. And then you dive a little deeper into some written things, but it's really the visual first. I mean, I would assume just like a collector is hit by something. They don't know exactly what it all means, but there's something that intrigues them. And so it would be the same way with me looking at images on an artist's website. You
said something in passing about performative art in your space. Mm-hmm. How do you look at performative art online? What gives you that same kind of sense?
That's a great question. There's usually a little video clip.
So you're okay with that? That gives you enough information?
Yeah. I mean, then you can see if it's sort of relevant to the 2D or 3D work that they're making, and how they've, sort of extrapolated something from that work to do the performance. And
do you sell video?
Yes, we do. Not a lot, but we do.
I used to get questions about, does it come with a monitor? Does it come with a hard drive? What are you selling typically? You're selling a box? You're selling a CD or DVD?
It depends on whose work. I mean, with Matthew Moore, there was some equipment involved, there was a pedestal involved, and the CD or the DVD. It just depends on the artist. Sometimes it is just a DVD.
Interesting. Okay. I How much of your art sales on an annual basis come from art fairs?
Gosh, I'm just going to sort of guesstimate, but maybe about 25%.
That's lower than I would have thought.
We don't do a lot of fairs. We're down to 2 or 3 fairs right now.
I mean, I'm thinking you don't particularly like them, but I want to come back to that point in a second. How many? So wait, 25? Did you say 25 or 30% sell to people in Arizona? So a whole lot happen over the internet.
Well, I think it's more like 35 to 40 in Arizona,
Okay.
and then the internet, and then maybe about 25%. Give or take from art fairs, 30%. So whatever makes up is probably the internet.
How do the internet sales happen? I mean, somebody sees an image and they phone the gallery, they email the gallery, you sell things directly off the website?
On our website, you can actually click on something, I believe, and say that you have interest in it. And then that comes to us as a web contact, and then we answer from there. So you can ask about a specific piece of art. I love people who call. I mean, I love the telephone. I'd much rather talk to someone about something than have to write a descriptive about it. It's just a little, a little easier, a little more personal.
So with most of the internet sales, there's a personal contact that occurs?
Oh yeah, it's my staff usually answering, most of the inquiries, but yeah.
No, that's fine and dandy. It's just not like somebody says, here's $8,000, I'd like this photograph.
Not that often.
Is there a difference in price points between what people spend online and from the internet and what sales you generate?
I'm sure there is. I mean, I've never sold a James Turrell installation over the internet. That's usually, a little more personal transaction over, many months or even years. So I think it's probably a price point below. Well, you know what? Actually, it just depends, because sometimes the better known artists are the people that are the artists that clients feel comfortable purchasing because they know the work. And those tend to have higher price points. So I don't want to contradict myself here. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool. If you guys want to start raising hands, I'll call on you for questions. David's been asking a few times which art fairs you participate in.
Oh, Art Miami in December. And the next one after that is APAD, which is the photography show at the Park Avenue Armory, and that's in April this year. And those are actually the only 2 fairs we're doing this season, just 2.
How much photography do you do?
Probably about maybe 30% of our work is photography. I'm guesstimating with these percentages.
That's fine. No, I'm more interested in your impression. And the fact that you don't have, like an Excel spreadsheet right in front of you,
Not my style.
I like that. All right, let me take some questions. Avon, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Lisa. The question I've got is kind of a question as far as contracts. How for your out-of-state artists and international artists, how is shipping handled in terms of your agreement?
Shipping with all of our artists is that they get it to us, and if we do not sell it in whatever amount of time that we've agreed upon, and they need it back, then we pay shipping back.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Avon. Carlos, go ahead.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you for joining us and talking to us.
Hi, Carlos.
I've got a couple of questions. The first question is, first of all, it's interesting to hear that you have a gallery in Phoenix. I mean, I read about you on the website and whatnot, but I know that Phoenix in particular has gone through a pretty bad downturn in the last 5 years or so because of the economy and all that. And obviously, I can see that some of your sales from now listening to you have come from outside of the Phoenix area, which is what sort of made me confused as to how do you survive? Because if it's your business and it's how you survive, it makes a big difference when the economy turns in an area, as it has in Phoenix.
Right.
And that's sort of, I'm glad you walked through that, and I sort of understood that after your conversations. I actually have another question now. Somebody who is not, I'm not using you as an example, but I'd like to hear you as your own opinion. How would you be best approached from an artist, if I'm not coming through a recommendation?
Well, okay. I thought about this because I knew this question was going to come up. So we have a very sort of strict policy. Every 2 years, anyone from all over the world is encouraged to submit. And you could submit online or, with a CD. We don't accept physical work in the gallery, and all those, all of those rules and regulations are on the website. So every 2 years, we do an open call to anyone who wants to submit. Hopefully they've looked at our website and they see what our aesthetic is, and they're not submitting cowboy and Indians. But I'll tell you, 30 years later, I'm still getting cowboy and Indians. And so I feel like every 2 years, that's a pretty fair and open, sort of submission policy. And we do it in July, because in July it is dead here. It's 120 degrees. There's no one in town. There's no one buying art. And the staff and I look at every single submission. And I am not just saying this. We look at every single submission. We take everyone seriously. And it takes us, it takes us about 3 weeks to go through everything. Now, we don't always, we've accepted very few over the years with, through the submissions. But, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, someone in Jerome, Arizona applied through that process. And within 5 minutes of looking at his CD, I picked up the phone. And I said, I'm going on vacation next week, and I want to spend the first day of my vacation meeting with you. So I made my husband drive to Jerome, which is a couple hours away, on the first day of my vacation, and we made a studio visit. And the work was just as fabulous or better in person than it was, in the submission. And so the process can work, but it's we turn away a lot of people. I mean, some years we have over 500 submissions. And some years we don't take anybody from that process. So, I mean, I just came up with this little ditty and I wrote it down. So, break the rules when you make it, but follow the rules when you submit it. Because when people don't follow the rules, it just pisses me off. Because we have this sort of process in place, and we take it so seriously every 2 years that, that we want artists to understand that we can't do it every year, and we can't do it during the months when we're working hard to try and sell the artists that we already represent, that we've already made a commitment to.
Fair enough. So you have your own Biennale.
We have our own what?
You have your own Biennale.
Well, the process is sort of like that. Yeah, I don't know if the exhibit ends up being like that, but yes.
Do you ever see artists like at art fairs you participate in that you actually covet?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, big lust.
You follow up on that sometimes?
Yeah, but always through the other galleries. I mean, I want to be respectful just as I would want other people to be.
No. I'm just trying to establish that the only way you find out about artists who you might work with is not solely through somebody whispering in your ear.
Right. Oh, definitely other art fairs. Yeah. Oh, there's big lust that goes on there. Big lust. Yeah.
What's your love-hate balance with art fairs?
Oh, it's just so sad that you have to, distill all the work that you've, sort of amassed into a 12-foot by 30-foot booth, under sort of sometimes terrible conditions, and you have to edit so carefully what you bring, and it's a lot of schlepping, and people think it's so glamorous. And, for Miami, what parties are you going to? And, what social events? It's like, oh my gosh, I can't, if I'm going to get up every morning and do what I, did the day before for 12 hours or 10 hours and remember that one client's name who's coming from some foreign country, you can't be out partying. They're exhausting.
They're really exhausting.
And they're limiting, but you have to do them, especially.
And they're limitless too,
Yeah, that's true too. But we're in Phoenix, Arizona. We're not in New York City, and we're not in LA, and we're not in Berlin. So in order to do the right job for my artists, we have to do it.
Michael, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for talking to us today. I was going to ask you about the art fairs and whether you thought they were hit and miss. And I know the cost is expensive as can be because the gallery I deal with goes to them, and they come back sometimes totally ecstatic, and other times they're like, that was a lot of money for nothing. So I'm just kind of curious if you find them more hit and miss. My gallery goes to the LA Art Fair. They do the Toronto Art Fair. I'm just curious if you find you're doing two at one point. I think you were doing more.
Moving the gallery, we pared down a little bit because we've still got some things to finish up here. And so, yeah, we were doing 3 or 4 probably prior to that. Yeah. Some of the fairs we do really well, and some you just break even. I think it's the only business though where you can, come back and say, "Oh gosh, I'm so excited we broke even."
Right.
What other business would that be acceptable? Yeah. Probably not.
I'm kind of that way. This past year I had a show and I covered my material cost. Usually I do way better, but for whatever reason it was a slower year, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. So, well, that's where if anybody questions, any of your passion for what you do or any of my passion for what we do, you have to sort of cut them off at the knees and just tell them about an art fair.
Yeah. It's not always about the money, so. Yeah.
It isn't. The money's only there so that you can put on your next show or make your next body of work. I mean, and eat, I suppose. So, and feed your dog.
Do you think that's true for most art galleries?
I'm sorry, Michael. Sorry.
Say that again, Paul.
All right, I'm taking the floor. Do you think that's true for most art galleries? I mean, I think the sense is that most artists think that most galleries have a higher schmuck potential than those of us who've been art galleries think we do. And I think most art dealers are pretty wonderful people who genuinely care about artists. And I think, this series of webinars illustrates that. And I'm asking Lisa, don't you agree that most art dealers are pretty damn good people?
I totally agree. And
that artists and galleries are kindred spirits, kindred souls who tend to have a really shared interest and, sit on the same side of the table.
Well, we do. I mean, I came from an art background. It's just I wasn't any good, so I had to give it up and find a way to be involved in it that fed me. We are from the same side of the table. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, I'm going up to Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia. You are unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, hi. I just have a question. Wanted to know if you think that it's cool or just appropriate to connect with galleries at art fairs, or are people so focused on selling the people that they're representing that it's detrimental to the person that's there? Should you just take a card and not say anything?
I think the best thing to do is use an art fair to sort of look to see where you feel like you fit in, and take the card and then see what their submission process is and follow the submission process. But to approach, I think, a dealer at an art fair probably it's not the right time, because we are so focused on trying to do our business that we're not going to give you the respect that that you should have, and the one time that we'll give it is during the submission process. So I'm going to go ahead and say that most dealers would probably not prefer that you approach them at an art fair, unless of course you're an artist that wants to buy something, and that happens too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I totally agree with what Lisa's saying, though I am frequently shocked at the number of times art dealers seem to want to continue the conversation with the artist and keep on going when the artist keeps, oh, no, you drink your coffee, don't worry about me, just sit there, I gotta go. And they keep, and the art dealer keeps going, well, no, show me your work. And I don't know, I guess when that happens, you should seize the opportunity, but it does surprise me how often that does happen.
Well, they are much nicer than I am, then.
Oh, I'm sure that's the case. Reza, you are unmuted. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
Okay, hi there.
Hi, Lisa. My question was about when you're considering new artists, how do you think about risk? In the context of, keeping your place in business, what kind of risks are you willing to take, and how do you assess that?
Oh gosh, I don't think about risk. I mean, I think if I'm willing to take someone on, then that's that's on me. If I feel strongly about the work, I mean, it's going to show through in how I present it, and I don't think about it that way. I just don't. I mean, I might include you in a group show, or we have a little sort of gallery within the gallery, a little project room. I might start you off in there, and that's maybe not to test the market as much as to test our relationship, see what you are able to create for us. But I don't think of it in terms of whether or not of risk. I guess I've never thought of it that way.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I would find myself thinking of certain, kinds of things like, and I wonder if you do too. Well, her work looks an awful lot like his new work, and maybe we shouldn't take her on because we already work with him, and their work looks a lot alike.
You've been doing this for a while, haven't you? That's a really good question. I think that's true. I mean, if it's too close, and sometimes, an artist thinks, well, my work is so much like this work, why don't you want to take it on? And it's because it does look so much like that work. And it may be coming from two different, conceptual sort of ideas. But yeah, if it's too much like another artist's work, I mean, yeah. I mean, if, I don't know if you all know Angela Ellsworth's work, but she's the woman on our, you can find it on our website, who makes the bonnets with the pearl tip corsage pins through it. I mean, if someone else came to me with a hat form with, little beads or something on it, I'd probably have to say no. It would confuse the client too.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Okay, Jill, hi there. You are unmuted. Jill, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Paul and Lisa. How are you? Thanks for coming on here. I have two questions. One, I was wondering how you feel about independent artists participating in art fairs. Sometimes there's an open call and you get invited.
You mean to have your own booth or your own?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's fine. I mean, I assume that the art fairs are vetting who, who's invited in. So I think if you're not with a gallery that gallery's not doing that art fair, and you've been vetted into that art fair to have your own booth, I don't see any problem with it.
Do dealers go and look at those, do you think?
If it's on the way to the cafe, definitely.
Right. Okay.
I mean, well, we go through the whole art fair. We see everything. So sure, we'll look at we usually look at everything. That's
Yeah. But if it's in Miami and there's lots of art fairs and this one's 2 blocks away, is it likely that you're going to make it?
2 blocks, yes. It's kind of likely. We're not going to. How are we going to know that that's your? How are we going to know that that's not a gallery?
Somebody told you it was yucky.
I'm sorry. What?
Somebody told you it was not attractive.
I don't know if I would listen to other folks necessarily, but
Okay, good. Jill, what art fair are you talking about?
Well, I participated in the Unpainted that was in Germany, and then I nothing much became of it, but I don't know, it might be long-term good. And then I was invited to Connecticut in London that I decided not to participate, just because of, it being far away and the cost of travel. I wasn't sure if it was worth it or not.
Well, a lot of our artists are approached by, it may not be an art fair, but it may be some sort of something like an art fair, but they're expected to pay their way and, and pay the shipping, so you really have to weigh whether you think that's going to be worth it for you or not. I think, that's a tough one.
Right. And then just, if I could do one more question, just with video work and digital work, just any suggestions on editioning and signing it?
I don't know about signing it, but editioning it, I tend to like editions for video to be under, 8. I'd like them to be kind of small, even under 5. That's just a personal preference. But, when you go to price something like that, it's going to depend on, where the artist is in their career, how substantial the video is. I mean, if it's a 2-minute, sort of quickie, then it may be less than a very, like I can't think of the artist right now, but, but a more intense, sort of full video. So, but I'm a fan of keeping the edition low for video.
Great. Thanks so much.
I think the question with any size of an edition is, when was the last time you sold out an edition? And I think the sense is that if the edition size is larger, the price should be a little bit lower. And if you're selling it out, you're not taking advantage, you're not getting that, you're leaving money on the table, so to speak.
Right.
So therefore, you might as well have the edition size, number of pieces in the edition be a little lower and get a little bit more from the sales. I'm sorry, that one's sold out, is a really powerful thing to say.
Well, the pricing sort of has to be, and this is a tough thing to sort of figure out, but it has to be commensurate with where the artist is in their career, no matter what it is. And so the edition, it would sort of be the same. But yeah, the bigger the edition, the lower the price. And then you can step the edition like you do in photography. You could do it the same way with video. The first 2 are this price, the second 2 are this price, the next 2 are this price, and the AP is, you can't afford it. So, something like that.
So they don't have to be all the same price, because I've been mostly selling myself, and I've been keeping them the same prices, but they could increase.
Well, at least for the very end, you want to, have some incentive for people to buy early. At the very end.
Totally. How many pieces have you been putting in your editions, Jill?
I actually did put 5.
Yeah, I think after you sold 2, you could raise the price 25%.
Okay.
And then you can think about that being a new base for another piece, a base price. But that doesn't necessarily mean it should be. Think about it. Okay, cool.
Great. Thank you.
Michael's asking about bronze. Yes, pretty much the same notion. And the Jeff Koons comment, in addition to 3,000, well,
Well, that is not of this world.
Thank you.
That is not of my world. So, that's a whole nother, that's just a commercial, sort of, I hate to say it, but it's a tchotchke at that point.
Darlene, how are you? You're unmuted. Darlene,
different rules of thumb. For example,
wait, start over, okay?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You talked about, rules of thumb for artists, that you heard about artists, with the big D, being difficult, or, artists that you've liked that maybe their work was just, wow, it just really grabbed you. I was curious about other criteria, or if there's like I hate to say a matrix or something that you kind of go by when you do look at artists, by maybe looking at their resumes, if they have a gap, in maybe like a exhibition, record, or if there's something that you really kind of start to look at and analyze to see if someone would be a good, worthy artist.
Well, I don't really look at I'll give a cursory look at the resume. But I think what I'm looking at is to see whether or not, firstly, and most importantly, is do I respond to the images that I'm seeing? And also, is it something that I've never seen before? I want to see things that I've never seen before, whether it's the medium or, I'm just interested in things being not like other things that I've seen. And then I don't want it to reveal itself to me all at once. I don't want it to be too easy, like a one-liner. I want to know that there are layers to it that maybe, I have to do a little research myself to fully understand it. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I'm not looking at gaps in resume. I mean, it's not like an employment sort of, I'm not looking with it at it with an employer's eyes. I'm looking to see what am I responding to or not.
I guess I was wondering, are there other things that you look at, when you kind of analyze, an artist by chance? But it seems like it's just really a lot about the work, which is really great to hear.
It's everything about the work. I mean, some artists will say, oh, and I've sold, this and this and this at this prices, and my other galleries do really well. And, there's a part of me that says, ooh, but then I don't respond to the work. And so it's kind of like, well, no, that's all enticing and great and good for you. But that's, I've learned in 30 years that if you go into it with the wrong intentions, for me anyway, I fail. If I take on an artist for all the wrong reasons, I don't do well. And consequently, they don't do well. So it doesn't work. So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
I think that's the same message that we convey a lot in this class, is that you got to do what resonates, and that if you're trying to pick a trend, that's a mistake. And if you're trying to jump on a bandwagon, it's a mistake. And the thing that's important is to be yourself. And then the next step is to be yourself some more. And then the next step is to be vulnerable and to be willing to reveal who you are. And I mean, I like Lisa sitting here nodding like.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so true. And the word trend, even the word trend just makes, can't stand the word trend.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there are other criteria that come into, looking at an artist, but it ultimately is about the experience. And, I don't understand why so many dealers get such a bad rap, because so many of the art dealers you and I know, Lisa, which are a lot of the same and, a lot of the different, but, they're all really good people. I would leave them alone in my house and, and not worry,
Others with my dog and some not with my dog, but yeah.
That's right. And the art would all be level. But, I'm not worried.
I'm going back to the question, before you started speaking, Paul. And, I want a piece of art to make me look at, maybe read 3 or 4 different books on subjects that radiate out of that body of work. Whether it's Mormonism or, the Maori or, the Comtesse de Castiglione. I mean, I think the only reason, or the biggest reason I'm in this, is that I want to learn. And so I want to learn from artists' work. And that's the first point of contact is your visual. But then I want to sort of, then I go into other mediums. Then it's books and films and, things about that subject that you might be tackling that, that you made me aware of.
Beautiful. Thank you both. Carolina, you are unmuted and it's your turn. Go ahead.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Paul.
Hi.
I really want to know, how do you get new clients or keep the client that you already have?
Do you have some suggestions for me?
Well, marketing, probably.
I think part of it is just a tough question, because marketing is not my background at all. We try and put out really good quality materials, like a printed newsletter. We try and have a good website. We try and have the quality of what goes out in the world commensurate with what we think the art is, and how and us too. I'm not that great at marketing, and that's where art fairs are really helpful, I guess. But a lot of my clients become friends too, and then it becomes a word of mouth thing, and people bring people here, and so and over 30 years you develop a network, and I've had people supporting me for many years, and they're loyal, and they're repeat clients, I guess is how you would describe them. So art fairs and good materials that go out that that maybe distill the essence of what we are and who our artists are. But we don't make cold calls, and we're not aggressive in that way.
I realize that over time, and I realize this from doing the course, I think, that a lot of what we're selling is ourselves.
Mm.
A lot of what we're selling are ourselves. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not so much like an artist is selling their art. The artist sort of, and as even you feel, the artist pretty much sort of kind of doing that.
Yeah.
The artist taking care of itself. Our job is to get out of the art's way and to talk about ourselves.
Yeah.
So that I don't think the artist should feel insufficient when they go to the gallery and say, I am an artist, here's my art. It's sort of like, to me, there's not a rejection letter. There's a, your art doesn't quite fit my agenda letter. You know, whereas I don't know, I may not have quite able to verbalize my mission, but I know what it's about, and your art doesn't really fit that. Don't take it as rejection. But I guess the point is that, you know, frequently you talk about, I mean, if you bring a new artist to a collector you've known for 20 years of art galleries, you know, of art fairs, and you say, hey, I want to turn you on to this new artist I just discovered from Mars, they're going to go, oh, that's really cool, Lisa. We really respect your taste, your opinion, your perspective, your background. Show us your art.
Right.
You know,
well,
they're all predisposed to like it because they like you. You know?
Well, hopefully they understand that we put in sort of the research, if you will, and that, you know, we put our stamp of approval on it because it's the same criteria as you know, as all the other artists that we show.
Yeah, exactly. But
otherwise,
as well,
young artists would never have a chance. I mean, if we didn't, you know.
But I also want artists to be able to extrapolate from that experience to themselves and talk about, you know, and you can be an ally even if you don't love the artist art, and you may love the artist, and or conversely, if you like the artist, you're in the right frame of mind to like the artwork.
It's so much easier for me if we love the artwork and love the artist, because then, you know, then I don't have to lie.
Yeah, lying is not so much fun. All right, Carolina, thank you. Let's take two more questions and be done. Let's go to Cynthia and then Sarah Louise, and then we will wrap it up. Cynthia, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay. You may have sort of potentially answered this question when you were talking about just ideas behind paintings, but one of the things that I keep running into is just looking at like a series of work, and it seems to me, like kind of across the board, not always, but a lot, that you see that a series of work looks pretty similar in size, but not necessarily even in size, just in the compositions. And I'm just wondering if you, like, how do you feel about series, number one, if the ideology is behind the work, but the work looks somewhat different from painting to painting? I mean, does that bother you if it's interesting and good work?
Well, if I'm understanding your question correctly, so you're saying you make a body of work, but that within that body of work, things look very different.
Yes, perhaps.
Okay, and
style or in palette, but just, you know, from one painting to another, they look different, but the ideology behind them is all based in.
Well, my mind went right to the last exhibition we had in our old space in, it must have been in May, an artist named Carrie Merrill. And she made a body of work, you know, I tend to like one or two person shows better than group shows. Group shows drive me crazy. But, you know, Carrie made a whole show based, I think the title was Domesticated. And within that body of work, there were lots of different sort of ideas and different references and sort of different styles and different sizes, and some were on like a rough burlap and some were on, you know, a really fine linen. And I, you know, if you went into the gallery and you looked at that show, you might not understand what tied it all together until you read the title of the show and then looked at what, you know, the work sort of was. Fingers poking at, you know, a mother trying to get some sleep and things like that. And so I understood it because I understood the concept that the show was based on, even though the work was very, you know, sort of different. Yeah, I don't know how else to answer the question, but so long as the concept is there and each piece sort of relates to that concept, then it can work.
Okay, that's my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Cool. All right, last question. Sarah Louise, you are unmuted. Take it away.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Lisa, for a wonderful talk today. My question is about how we as artists can support a gallery that's showing our work. What would you ideally like us to do?
That is a fabulous question. Thank you. Well, I mean, probably the most obvious way is to be professional, you know? I mean, it sounds odd, but make your work, get us the images, get us things, on time so that then we can do our job. And then if you're in the community where the gallery is, I mean, come to our openings, go to events at the museums and put yourself out there a little bit, not in an aggressive way, but just put yourself out there a little bit. I mean, it's, we are in it together, I guess. The artist and the gallerist are in it together. And so you should be visible.
That's lovely. Thank you. It's a tradition. I think we often think we shouldn't be visible.
No, you have to be. I mean, because people love the gallerist, but they love the artist more.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's a perfect place. Sir Louise, thank you very much. That was really great. Lisa, you were really wonderful. Hold on, don't say anything humble because I've muted you and I don't want to miss it. Okay, I think you've been really fabulous. I think you've shared, it seemed like lots of little snippets, but it amounted to a ton of information. Let me unmute everybody so that everybody can echo my comments. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Let me stop.